When I bought this XC90 2 years ago, it was my daily run around, and I bought it from Copart. It was probably the cheapest running driving XC90 in Europe. Now, I haven't done a fat lot to it. It still has the dented panel, which meant that it was written off 2 years ago. And other than having a cam belt when I first had it, it's the only work that's been done to it. And now it needs a bit of tidying up and a few jobs done. Car had become a bit of a nightmare to drive. You had to drive really carefully all the time, and it did it progressively over a long period of time, and I got used to it, but every time you went around a corner you were always driving with your butt cheeks clenched together because it was so scary. If you put your foot on the brake and turned at the same time, you really did need to take your own life into your hand, and you had to pray to some sort of Swedish god of life to preserve you while you went around the corner. So here's my poor old XC90 into the garage again. I've had so much snow everywhere, I've not been able to actually put it into the garage to do any work until now. It's got two ball joints that need replacing on the front. It's made it almost impossible to drive. So it's now sitting here ready for me to do that. Put the breaker bar on and just crack it off. Now, the first time I attempted this, I tried to do it without removing the strut, and I was here for hours trying to force the bottom arm down enough to get it into the ball joint, which is a silly idea because this is much quicker. You think you're doing more work, but you're actually not, because taking the strut off is a very easy job. So we take the top one off there, take the bottom one off, and then we can get the impact wrench on it much quicker. Than just break them first, like so. Sorry about that, Mr. Cameraman. There isn't a cameraman really, it's just me. There we go, and that's the drop link off. You need that out of the way. One. Two. You can see the strut drops down when you do that. That's how easy it is to take the strut off. Right, the next two, this is the front mounting, or as Americans say, front bushings. So we need to get at the other side of those, which are underneath here. So we're going under the car. I've already removed the sump cover. As you can see, it's a bit mucky under my engine. That's another issue I need to address. But there's two bolts there, and there. And they're 15s, and they're going to be tight because they do hold the front suspension on. And there we go, that's actually out. You leave it in there because you don't need to take it out. The two bolts at the front, the two little 15s. And that's the back where we just took the long one out. And that just comes out. And what we have is an arm. Right, and this is the reason we're replacing. There's a new one, obviously. This is the old one, and when you go to the old one, watch, you can move. If you can see that, subtle enough, but that moves just with the weight of my fingers on it. This one is the new one. It doesn't move at all. We've just done the bottom arms, so we're now going to take it out on a test drive and see if it's driving much better than it was before. Many problems on this car is because I've had it for 2 years and I've kind of maintained it, but I've also kind of neglected it at the same time, is I've got used to some of the foibles, some of the little idiosyncrasies, and one of them is the fact that it's actually completely and utterly dangerous to drive. I used to have to slow down to go around corners because when you put your foot on the brake, it was so wobbly on the steering, and it's all down to the fact that the bottom arms needed replacing. And I'd actually done a set of arms on this 2 years ago, just after I'd had it, and they were cheap Chinese ones, and they wear out very, very quickly. Now I've done it again with cheap Chinese ones because I'm not aiming to keep the car that long. Right, the difference that changing the bottom arms does, if you've any doubt how wobbly your suspension is on an XC90, I can almost guarantee it's going to be the bottom suspension arms. The back bushing on the bottom suspension arm just wears out so quick. There's 2.5 tons of Swedish engineering in this car, and these suspension arms just aren't up to the job. So really, you need to replace them every 2 years, and the whole thing wobbles. I've got brand new ones on here, and the car is so good. It makes such a difference. It feels like a new car again. I'm wobbling the steering wheel, and unfortunately we're shaking the camera around a little bit, but the difference is amazing. It handles so much better.